Okay, a few more people to join in, but any questions from last week? Did you all do any more pencil sketches? Um, did you try anything? Oh, sure.
Miss, we did florals last month. I did a lotus.
Okay, let's see. Nice. Can I'm just gonna pin it. Very lovely. Very beautiful. Did you do the background before you made the flower?
No.
Ah, you should do the background first.
No, then first I do the background and then the green starts seeping into the pink if I overlap.
No, so you don't overlap it. You know where your flower is going to come, right? So you don't color that part at all. You color the backdrop simply because it gives you more room to spread the color out as you need. And you'll notice that the flower shape is really small. When you do the background color afterwards, you have to sometimes be a little extra careful. Then you leave a few patches, and then that starts bringing your eye to those vacant patches. Try it next time, especially if it's a light color. If it's a dark color, then please don't do it first, then do it afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to do watercolor fruits and vegetables today. I've shared the images with you, and I will just briefly explain to you what we are going to be doing with these images. Okay, so I've shared 4 images of individual fruit and vegetables. They're mostly just fruit, actually, not vegetables. And the vegetables are in this large box. So when you are going to do food illustration, it's usually going to be in the context of either travel or food journaling or a recipe book. So we have to illustrate in such a way that it adds to the beauty or the aesthetic of that particular image or the whole layout. So in some cases, there is a requirement to make absolutely perfect looking fruit or vegetable, but those occasions are only for, I think, for scientists. For most people, it's nicer to have illustrations which are fun, which are exciting, and keep the viewer's attention on your page and enjoy that delight. So that's what we're going to focus on. Just take away the idea of creating absolute perfect shapes or perfect um, smooth painting. It's all going to be a whole lot of washes and a very light application of layers of translucent paint to create depth and thereby to create a more exciting looking illustration. So a few things to keep in mind when we are working with color, just basic color theory is how you combine colors. It's really important. When you have an image like this apple, which is just a standalone fruit against a white, neutral, completely nondescript backdrop, it's okay, but it does very little for the picture. It's the safest way to make an illustration. But this is not the only thing you can do. So you could have things like these, where you have a dark colored background, especially when you have a light colored fruit. Things like lemon or light colored vegetables like garlic usually get lost in the illustration. So we are going to create some kind of a dark backdrop. Now, when you do a dark backdrop, what color would you use in the backdrop? Sometimes the temptation is to use a bright color, and then that totally takes away from the beauty of the light colored fruit. So if you are going to color the backdrop, remember that that is going to be like the side hero of this illustration. So you can't have two colors which are clashing with each other. So we'll do a little bit of observation of colors as well and how to choose colors wisely. Then you have an illustration possibility like this, where the backdrop is not just one flat color, but it is what could be termed as a vignette, which is dark in a few places and light in a few places. Now, ignore the fact that the pairs in the backdrop are out of focus. That's also something that we can make at some point, but not necessary at this point. And it's very easy, so don't be scared of something like this. And another way of making backdrop for light fruit and also their own flowers is to show them in their natural habitat, which usually would be a tree with leaves, other kind of foliage. So that adds a more natural backdrop to your illustration. So we are going to attempt to make quick sketches of all of these, and I'm going to show you color blending techniques and mixing techniques. And then we are going to move to this collection of vegetables. So we are going to,
Aditi?
yeah, yes, Neha.
The third last picture is of a pear, is it?
Right, yeah.
Right. Okay. I never knew that pears also had flowers. Very
No, so the one with flowers, I'm actually confused. It's some kind of citrus. And as always, there are 60,000 varieties of every fruit that we know. So it's some kind of citrus, maybe a mandarin orange or something like that. That's my guess. I don't think it's a pear because I don't know if pears have this kind of fruit, but I do know for sure that all kinds of citrus fruit have this kind of flower, sorry. Okay, so now the process is going to be fast. So it's going to be built on what we did last week. We're going to make some very quick sketches, and then we are going to make quick color mixing and quick color application. So the things to remember, most important, is when you are applying paint, look to just stain the paper. Once the paper is stained, move on to the adjacent area and stain that paper. For beginners, sometimes it feels as if you need to keep going over and over and over, especially back and forth for applying paint. That's not how it is done. I'll show you some techniques with which you can move the brush in different ways and just stain the paper. The second thing is hold your brush very lightly so that it literally dances on your paper. So if you're holding it very close, you might be putting undue pressure on the paper and the paintbrush. But if you hold it a little further and just flick the paint around, it might create light strokes, and those will work much better. Okay. So if you've practiced a little bit of pencil sketching like we did last week, where we're going to make just quick shapes and shades. We don't even need shades today because those are going to be replaced with color. It might be easier. Now we're making small images, not too large. That way we can control the area that we want to paint. We're not going to make it too big. And so what we'll do is we'll make 1, 2, 3, 4 illustrations like these, and then turn the book on its side for the big box of vegetables. That way, all of our illustrations can be fit in one sheet.
Miss, I think those oranges are Satsuma oranges.
They are oranges?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Which fruit are we going to start with first?
Yeah, we're going to start first with the apple. Then we are going to make the lemons. Then we are going to make the pears, and then we're going to make Rihanna's oranges. Okay, so hold the picture in front of you so that you can use that reference. And make your hand glide on the paper. So first draw a circle and then adjust the circle.
Miss, how big is the circle?
Sorry?
How big is it? Like 2 or 3 fingers?
No, just about an inch or so, not too big.
Oh, okay.
So today, if your shapes are a little wonky, don't worry about that. We are just focusing on the color and shading today. So try to make the shape as close to the shape that you see, and make the lines really light so that you don't want the pencil to be seen through the color if possible. Again, I'm going to ask you to avoid using an eraser, but today we'll make an exception, because if your hand is heavy and your drawing is a little unsure, let's say, it won't be wrong. You would just have some doubts. Then if you have a flexible eraser, just roll the eraser on top of your illustration. Don't abrase. That way we will not disturb the surface of the paper. So erasing is also a very important part of watercolor illustration, surprisingly, not so much pencil sketching. So you have a standard eraser, which is a solid rubber, which you will move back and forth. But in doing that, you can damage the smooth surface of the paper. So if you use a flexible eraser, you can just make it's like putty. So you can just roll on top of your illustration, and that will easily just pick up excess lead or graphite in whatever place it needs to. And you can just press on the paper also, and that gets rid of excess graphite without disturbing the surface of the paper. So this is also, sorry, yeah.
I got an edible eraser and then I get so obsessed with it that I start rubbing it all over the page, and then after I'm done with all the erasing, I can't see what I'd drawn before.
Okay, so there is a threshold. You need to know how much to erase. You shouldn't erase so much that after the first layer of painting, you won't see your pencil lines at all. But it's okay. You could probably make a conjecture and redraw. So it shouldn't be a problem. All right, so now in this picture, we are going to paint the apple in 2 layers. We have one light layer of what looks like scarlet, and then we have a layer of what looks like a mixture of crimson and burnt umber. Now, in our color kit, if you have that sheet that, oh, sorry, this is the wrong kit. if you have the color sheet that has the names of all the colors, keep it handy till you know the colors by heart. After that, you can chuck it. So when you see an image like that, you should instantly be able to identify what shades of colors you're going to use. Now, this part is again going to become a very instinctive activity. You're not going to actively have to select colors and say this, that, and the other, but you should be able to tell. Now, in this case, there's a little bit of orange mixed with scarlet. And then to that color, we are going to add a little bit of maybe crimson, no, burnt sienna, and then a little bit of burnt umber. So I'm going to make a color chart of all these colors on the side. So you don't have to, I mean, don't get stressed about what colors am I using. I'm going to tell you. And you can make a note exactly the same way. Maybe we'll make them on the bottom. That way we can write the names better. So you have orange. Then scarlet. Burnt sienna. This is slightly brownish red shade. And burnt umber. Now this exercise I'm doing for you before I'm painting, but you can do this exercise after painting as well, just to note down what colors you have used. Sorry, this is burnt sienna. If you are confused with what I was trying to write, I wrote the wrong color in this place. And this is burnt umber.
Miss, in the orange, did you make scarlet or crimson?
Scarlet.
Okay, thank you.
Now I'm going to very loosely mark the area where I'm going to have a highlight. Don't make a big circle over there, but just indicate with like posts. All these places are going to have the highlight. Now the process of painting is that I'll do one layer with a very watery wash using these shades in a medley. So medley is when I will take orange and scarlet and make one shade and then mix it over here. Then I'm going to use a certain way of mixing that into burnt sienna, which will just be these vertical strokes. So the first shade I'll be making will be orange and scarlet, which will be in this space. To that color, I'll be adding burnt sienna and then mixing it with these vertical strokes going outward. Vertical meaning they are perpendicular to the edge of the painting. And then as I come to the end, I will add burnt umber to this mixture and then pull that further. So I want you to just observe this. Don't paint with me. Just observe this once. And then you will know how my hand is moving. Because I'm sure you know the colors. It's not the colors that will make a difference. It's just the application that might be a problem. Now it's important to know which brush to use as well. You can use a 6 number or an 8 number brush for the size of the painting. I think I can use a 6 number brush for now. If you use a very big brush, then it usually has so much medium that you land up overdoing the amount of paint. When you're mixing paint as well, it's literally, you need to mix only enough as much as you need for that area. So don't make like a paint bath over here. All right, now this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply this color, which is a slightly lighter red because I've mixed it with orange. I hope everyone is just observing right now. Don't paint till I ask you to. I'm going to apply it in this area. And like I said, just aim to stain. Once it's stained, move the brush around. So let the brush dance. Now I've hydrated the rest of the colors also so that I can, while this paint is wet, I can add the rest, and I'm going to blend the color in this manner. I think a little crimson will do, but we'll add it in the second layer. So this is the perpendicular line. For the mix over here on the side, I'm going to go along this edge. And then I'm going to add burnt umber. Towards the end. And mix it with vertical strokes like this. Now the same thing has to be done on top as well. And just dodge around the marked highlight and go over the, if you want, you can leave the stalk or you can just go over it for now. Now, once your apple is stained, don't go over and over it again. There are a few patches here. Let that be the way it is. Even over here, don't make any adjustments at this stage because the paper is vulnerable, the colors are vulnerable. And if you try adjusting anything right now, it's all just going to become a big fat mess. So do this one exercise. We are going to come back to this and paint a second layer over it with brighter colors. Okay, do you want to give it a shot? So to keep this in check, don't take more than 5 to 7 minutes to paint this. If you're using any more time, there isn't so much that we've drawn. If you're using any more time than that, either you're painting too slow or with a very small brush, so you can use a slightly bigger brush, or your picture will just become too patchy otherwise. So look at just a 5-minute thing. It's about 5:30 right now. So by 5:35, you should have painted this first layer. Even before that is fine. Now the quantities of scarlet and orange and all the other colors is something that you will have to spend some time with to realize. Right now, I have not told you the quantities because I'm more interested in the color blending. And I can't even describe the quality to you because there's no way of giving you a quantum, like what 2 brush strokes of orange and 4 of scarlet, that won't work. So I'm going to ask you to rely on your own judgment. Look at the picture of the apple and you will see the colors the way they are, and then how you when you put them on the palette, you will see how those colors look. So you should get colors which are pretty close. Now the mixture of orange and scarlet will be a slightly pale red or a brighter orange shade. So let that be. We're going to go over it again with the second layer in which we'll add crimson. That will work better. Nice. Very nice, Neha. Yeah, looking good. The highlight on the top will become a little narrow, but don't do it right now. We will do it in the second round.
I'm sketching the lemons in the meantime.
Yeah, okay. Nice. Looking good, Dipti. When you're sketching the lemons, though, Neha, make border around them because we're going to be painting the backdrop as well.
Yep. Sure.
Do we have to start sketching the lemons?
You can sketch all of the others also, not a problem.
I'm
Because
sketching only because I'm waiting for the painting to dry and for us.
that's a good strategy because then you're not impatient. That happens to me all the time. I usually work on 2 illustrations or more at one time because
So because I am slow, so I'll be left behind.
I'm impatient. So
Yeah, I know what you
I
mean.
jump into the painting before it's dry and then it's really sad.
I always remind myself of what you say when I am painting.
Okay, so is everyone done more or less? Do you want me to wait or shall we continue? Okay, no protests. So I
We
shall.
can continue.
Okay, I'll move on. Okay, now my apple is looking a little too pale, so I am going to add a little bit of crimson to this mixture, but I suspect that my apple color will come out better if I add crimson and orange. Now, unfortunately, this time of the day is the worst to do watercolor unless you're sitting in flat daylight kind of conditions. So I'm going to do my best. Colors at this hour, dawn and dusk, are always different. They look very different. Through the day, what you see on paper will look very different. Wow, very lovely. Okay. Now the second round that I'm doing is just going to be a wash of crimson and orange because I want my apple to look a little more appleish, and I feel it's missing that crimson tone. Now I'm not making all the colors here. I've just made a translucent crimson and orange mixed in that same puddle. But not in the puddle which had the burnt sienna and the burnt umber. And I'm going to just go over the entire picture with this. And this time I'm just going to apply fat swaths of paint in this horizontal brush stroke, not spending too much time on that. So this will only sufficiently activate the colors underneath so that the top layer merges with the lower layer, but it will give me a nice tinge. And then what I'll also do is I'll run my brush with this paint along the edge of the highlight a little bit so that it becomes a little softer. Wipe the brush off and do this exercise one more time so that it's not a harsh highlight. So the second layer of paint that you put does not have to be all over. One second, this one is getting damaged a little bit and I didn't make it on top. Now you have to be sure that the first layer has dried completely and this consistency of the second layer is the same as the first. Otherwise, you'll end up getting a lot of watery patches. Mine is going to have some watery patches. So I'll get to show you what not to do. Can you see the vertical strokes? They're coming up. But again, if this happens, I have to wait till it dries and then I have to come back and do this all over again. Right, so while this is happening, I will also start sketching the lemons on the side. And once you make the lemons, make a border around it so that we can paint the backdrop as well. In the picture of the lemons, there are these leaves at the bottom. There are 4 leaves, of which one you can ignore. Ignore this one particular leaf over here. It is foreshortened. It's pointing straight into the camera. And these kinds of things you can totally avoid. You can either make it flat or just completely avoid drawing it all together. And when you're making the frame, just for fun, if you want to, you can make the frame in such a way that the leaves can stick out a little bit. I love to make these half frames. If possible, also align your pictures together so that the composition looks interesting. Okay, how are the apples looking? My apple has become a little patchy. I'm just going to let that be now. Now, if I were to correct this, I'm just going to show you a quick way how I will get rid of my problems in life with this apple. Instead of, let's see, Karan, very nice. It's a little bigger than I'd expected, but it's turned out very nice.
This book is actually really small. That's why you might think.
I was looking at your fingers. So
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. Yes. So blending nice, huh, Purvi? Did you have a problem with the blending? It's looking good. Pretty smooth. Nice. Very nice, Neha. Looking good.
Amit, did you see mine?
Yeah, I did. I saw it even the first time.
The voice cracks I didn't understand when I saw it.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, now to this. Now I'm not going to fiddle too much with it. I have patches. I'm just going to live with those patches. Let's see. Oh, very nice. 1 minute. That's ours' camera, but who is that with us? That's somebody else. That's not
Bhakti is with me today.
I got so confused. I said, this is not ours' face. What's happening? Hi. Okay, good. Nice, nice. Looking good, looking good. It's a nice way to spook me. I was thinking I'm going mad. Okay, so here's another way that I would work with adding shadows is now I'm adding burnt umber to the shade that we made last. And I hope you can see that my picture is fairly patchy. But I will do things like this where I will add a shadow just to certain areas where I have more depth. I need more depth. A little bit on the back like this. And I'm going to turn my book around so that I can add a shadow over here. Now, this is all a play of the brush. So just with one brush stroke, how we can make a shadow. The stalk is going to be made using just burnt umber and painted in a very staggered stroke like this. And to make it a little darker, you can add a few black strokes on just one side while the paint is still wet.
Aditi, I kind of like the patchy look.
Yeah, it is nice. We
Yeah,
don't
it's
need
very
to-
natural. You get those apples that have those strokes, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Yes,
the
you
one.
do.
So I actually don't mind it.
Cool. Okay, now for the lemons, if the apple is done, we can actually make the lemon and also draw the others, because then we can just paint all of them one after the other. For the pears and for those other oranges, you don't need to make a backdrop, but we will be painting that backdrop. So the quick sketching really helps in this case because we don't need to spend too much time on the sketch. We just have to look at the shape and make those shapes on paper. Sorry, what was that? Where did that come from?
Somebody is troubling someone.
Yeah. So in case of the pears, we will make a background wash before we color the pears also. It's fairly light, both colors are light. And for the little oranges, there isn't, that also we will make the background first. And this is a good practice for flowers and fruit together. Sorry, that's my cats. Just, they were sleeping right until now. And then right now they just,
Monsters are up. The cute
yeah,
monsters.
it's their time. I think it's like babies. They slept through the afternoon and now they want to play.
Now is time to play.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so how I would do this is definitely draw the flowers, but when you're drawing the leaves, just indicate with these V shapes where the leaves have to come in what direction, because we'll just be using brush strokes to make the leaves, focusing more on the flowers and the fruit. So you need some directional stalk. I hope you can see it.
Yeah,
And
we can see it. Yeah.
just an indication of how far your leaves are going to go. And I would make some over here as well, just to fill it up a little bit. All right. Now we have 20 minutes to color all these. Can we do it?
Very interesting.
I may not be able to give you all the colors, but let's see, let's take this on because we have to do that vegetable crate.
Yeah.
also.
Yep.
So those of you who are not, who are a little slow and don't want to be stressed about this, you don't need to paint all three. You can just wait and paint whichever ones you can. If I'm going to be going from lemons to pears to oranges, hopefully that is the sequence I'll continue. So if you are on lemons and I'm doing pears, but you feel that you're lagging behind, you can move to the oranges with me, then back to the lemons, ignore the pears and keep doing it in that order. That should work. All right, now lemons. The color that I'm going to use will be a mix of lemon yellow and gamboge, and but mostly lemon yellow. So I'm going to do a quick application of a single color wash here. My lemon is so dirty. And I'm going to leave a very visible highlight, though the highlight in the picture is not that bright. And as I come towards the right, I'm going to add more gamboge to my lemon. This time I'm just blending the strokes in the same contour as the shape of the lemon.
Hello? Excuse me, ma'am. Can you please wait? We are still drawing.
You're still drawing? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What are you still drawing? All the oranges or the pears?
Ma'am, the orange.
Okay, fine. I'll just note down the colors till then. So that's lemon yellow, gamboge. Bhakti, when you're done, you'll tell me now, otherwise we'll all just be waiting. That was Bhakti, right?
Yes, ma'am. She's almost done. She's just
Okay.
finishing.
Okay.
The flower part she's drawing.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I'm gonna move on now. Now we have to take very light color here. That means that the amount of pigment in your brush can be very little. Though you don't take more water necessarily. There's just enough to spread in this area. And when you're spreading the color, remember to press the brush a little bit in some spaces. So when you press the brush down, it reduces the amount of pigment that comes into contact. No, it increases the area that the pigment comes into contact with, and therefore it gets spread over a large space, and that makes the color a little light over there in those areas. And with something like this, you can simultaneously paint all the fruit. I'm going to have to get a new kit now because this color is so dirty. On that note, actually, you know, it's if your palette or your colors become too mixed up, then you can just hold it under a tap and let one layer of paint just wash away. I think I'm going to have to do that right now. So I'm not using too many browns, but if need be, I would use a yellow ochre to create a dark shade in some places, but I'm going to show you how that dark shade will be added. There's a little highlight over here on this knob. Now again, if you want to make the highlight a little dull, run a damp brush along the edge of that highlight. So these are just very casual illustrations. When you see the really, let's say, formal illustrations that are made, they're firstly made on a much thicker paper. So you could paint this in maybe 15 layers if need be, going layer by layer by layer, translucency increasing the depth of the painting. Nice. Good, Rayana. Have you used orange by any chance? Or
No, it's coming like that on the camera for some reason.
Okay, it's looking too bright. Okay. Can I quickly move to the pears now? So we have to create a really muddy.
Are we done with the lemons?
No, we have to wait till this dries, and we have only 20 minutes to finish the rest. So we're going very fast.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a very dull neutral color in the backdrop, and we are going to paint only in a few places over here. Just drop it in a little swath. So that color can be made using burnt umber and ultramarine blue. That's how I see it. I already have a patch of that. I often use it to create neutral shadows in objects, which you're going to do later. So what we will do is we're not going to make the backdrop look like cloth. We will just make the color so that it keeps the makes the pear stand out. One very important thing I forgot to tell you is if you have a rough sheet handy, It'll help to see how much paint you have in your brush so that you don't put in a very dark color, especially in cases like this. So I'm going to place a color which is just about this light, and I'm going to put it right around the pears. But when I am applying it, I want you to see that I am flattening the brush along the edge. So this will give my the outer edge of the painting will be a little unseen. You won't be able to tell the edge in many places, and that's how we want it. And that's it. That's as much as we're going to do, not more than that.
Aditi,
So
what
this-
colors do you use? Burnt
Yeah.
umber
And ultramarine blue.
okay.
So this color is a very nice neutral gray, warm gray shade, which can become a cool gray if you increase the amount of ultramarine blue in it. And it's great to use like as shadows when we're drawing something like garlic or even white flowers, and you need some shading in the petals.
You know, somehow on camera, your that color is looking like a pale green.
It might be a pale green.
Very interesting because I am getting like a roll gray.
Okay, it's this light, it's twilight now. So a combination
The
of the,
light. Yeah. Yeah. Light this time is very tricky.
I usually don't do any painting work, especially critical painting work like this in the evenings.
So what time do you usually paint?
Daytime. So I start, if I get a whole day, I'll make the illustrations really early in the morning, and then I'll start the painting after 11 and stop by 5:30. And then sometimes if it is coloring that does not require me to be accurate to a reference image, then I do that later at night also. So if it's going to be lettering, which doesn't matter what shade actually I get, that I can do at later hours also.
Yeah. That's helpful to know.
Because between morning and afternoon also the light changes.
Yeah. What's the best time? Like ekdam best time?
Ekdam best is the white light of morning. So after maybe in this season from maybe 8:30 to about 12 is good for painting. Even up to 1 maybe. But then afterwards the light turns a little yellow. Yes, very nice, Karan. Looking good.
It's almost like there is a nice shadow.
Yeah, correct. Okay, now pear color. Everyone will be able to make this pear color.
Sap green and it's like yellow ochre maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Gamboge and what do you call your sap green?
You could use a sap green
Little bit
and
of burnt umber.
Sap green, yellow, and a little bit of gamboge.
sap green and yellow ochre would be a little better, I think. But don't take my word for it. Test it out. Paint it yourselves and see which looks good. And you can start from the pear in the back. And in this case now, see, there are certain shadows in a few places. So what I would do is also have a little bit of cobalt blue available, which I will add in some places. So here again, I'm going to paint this in batches. Just have a look. I'm first painting the pear in the background. And as I come towards the left, because there is a shadow there, I will add cobalt blue to that shade. My green has become really light.
Ma'am, which green is this?
Sap green.
Sap.
And,
Okay.
yeah, sap green and yellow ochre. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of the green to make this a little brighter. Now this is going to become too patchy and watery. Thank God it's in the backdrop. I think a little bit of lemon yellow might also help the color. So lemon yellow, yellow ochre, and sap green. Incidentally, with these colors, there's a good chance that you can create the exact same shade with a completely different set of colors altogether.
Yeah.
Instead of green, you could easily use a cobalt blue and add any of these yellows to the cobalt blue and might get the exact same result or equivalent.
I think that's great to kind of learn more about color theory and how colors mix and all of that, I guess.
Yeah. And it's super fun. There's so much you can do. Sometimes you get more vibrant greens by not using any green at all.
Yeah, sure. We'll try it for sure.
Okay, now since my central pair is close to the two on the side, I'm painting the one in the front.
Miss, can you check my green ka shade?
It's a little pale now. What do you think?
Yeah.
So now the trick here is that in the foreground, the pair has got many colors. It's slightly lighter at the bottom as well. So if you feel like it, you can use a lighter shade of the same green. So the trick is that you keep adding a new color to a previous color while it is still wet, or then you can wait and add it afterwards, like we did with the apples. Now, as I'm coming closer, I am going to add a burnt umber to this corner, but only while it's still wet. So I get a very dramatic joint at the stalk. And now the highlight has become very stark, so I'm going to run a damp brush along the edge. Okay, now you will notice that there are also a lot of patches over here, but again, these look nice. We don't want to create an absolutely smooth looking fruit. It makes for very boring illustrations. There is a way that we can do it, but maybe not at this point. Same process again, a little bit of cobalt blue. And when I say little bit, it's just a very little bit. and also apply your color from light to dark. If you need to reduce the paint from your brush, keep a rag handy. Is everyone painting? I can't hear anyone grumbling, so I'm a little confused. I hope I've not gone too fast. Okay, now I'm going to make these strokes like I did for the apple in a few places to add more depth and also more drama. And here the colors can be a merge, a mix of all the shades that we have used also, and they can stand apart very distinctly. Maybe with a thinner brush this time.
Miss, can I check this?
Ah, nice, nice.
Miss, it is coming all different on the camera. Like I mixed sap green with lemon yellow, but over here it's like gamboge, but it's green.
Okay, then I will wait for the pictures on the group. I'll trust your judgment. I think you're good with colors, but I'm wondering, are you making the painting too smooth? It's not bad, but you can allow for a few energetic lines in this. So few lines that are made which are just for emphasis. I'll come back to the bottom over here later. And here now my highlight is looking like jaws. So I'm going to add a little water and with a damp brush equalize it. That's it. Okay, we are at 10 past 6 and this is our limit for painting individual fruits. Can everyone finish the fruits on their own? Yeah, you all get the idea, right? And I'll finish the fruit and I'll post the images with all the colors so that we can move on to making the illustration of that box of vegetables. And we'll leave this for now if you want. I'll try and make a video of this so you can see it, but maybe it'll be after class. And if you want, you're welcome to wait a little bit after class so I can at least demonstrate this painting. But for now, let's move on to that box of vegetables. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, and I'm assuming everyone else is also nodding because I can only see Neha and Rayana. Okay, now if you have space over here, you can make the next illustration here, or you can take a different sheet of paper, but we're not going to make the illustration too large. It's just going to be a tiny illustration. So those of you who remember the floral art piece that we had done, which was the second class, no, third class. where we had indicated the flowers, we're going to make something like this with the vegetables, with the box of vegetables also. So shall I demonstrate? Okay, turn my book on the side. Okay, so when you have a composition like that, it's really important to figure out the dimensions, the width versus the height. And when you see a picture in front of you, you can literally just use your writing tool to figure out how many times the width is the height, or the opposite of that.
Before you start demonstrating, can you just see my pairs? Are they okay? Like,
Yeah, they're looking okay. They're looking okay right now. Yep. Okay, good.
Miss, can you take the second one I did? I made it kind of rough and all that.
Yeah, looking nice. Good, good, very good. Very nice. On track. Super. Okay. Right. So as I was saying, the proportion over here is important because there are so many elements that they all need to sit in proportion with each other. So even before I start, actually, let me share the image and I'll show you what I would look for. So in this case, I would look at how long and how wide is my box. It's just slightly wider than it is long, right? If I were to draw a line straight through the center vertically and then horizontally, I get a distribution of all the vegetables. And then when I break this up, it's easier to even see the vegetables in smaller quantities. So you have one oval, two ovals, and then a whole lot of circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this box. We're going to ignore the spears of asparagus for the moment. Then we have 1, 2, 3 in the back, and then these ovals. So the potatoes are more or less in the center. Along this side, then you have the garlic over here in the box at the bottom. Then you have these teardrop shaped onions. So the guidelines help you to figure out where all these elements lie and to in what area, more or less. Once this is done, it becomes very easy to then draw this on paper. If we don't have any references at all, there's a chance that you might start off with the tomatoes and all your vegetables will finish by the time you come over here. And then your box is empty for the most part. Okay, so that is one. Second is proportioning. So when you're making these, also look at the proportions of the elements. If you feel that some of the elements you've made are small or they're covering a very small area and the space in between is more, then add a few of the same elements. Like for example, the space between tomatoes and potatoes. If you feel you have a lot of space in between, don't make one humongous potato because then that'll look unnatural. But in its place, you can make 2, 3 spuds. That might look more natural. In this place also, don't take an onion and put it over there because a box like that, for aesthetic reasons, has been designed a certain way. So redesigning it haphazardly doesn't really look nice. Now we have this weird avocado over here, and making an avocado, I don't know whether this will look nice, but we'll give it a shot because it's like a weird gray, brown, ugly color. You can make it a green avocado. You can do that much. That should be fine. Okay. All right. Now the sketching has to be really quick on this. So start off with first proportioning. This is our box height. This is the box width and just a little more than the height. So I've not made it too big. And I'm going to, in fact, draw this with a pen so you can see my strokes a little better. Okay, so my lines are going to be very sketchy. So I'm going to start off with my potatoes in the center. And then I have there's a potato here. And then I have my carrots. The sketchy lines are important, again, like I said, because you want to make the illustration look energetic. Now, as you can see, my second carrot has come and touched my box at the bottom. So I'm going to continue making the third carrot because I can increase the size of my box. This was just an indication. Pencil lines can be changed if your illustration requires that. Then I'm going to draw my garlic. So look at the silhouettes that you see in your picture. And I would encourage all of you to try making this in pen instead of pencil. Your lines will be much stronger, I can guarantee you. Hold your pen a little further than you would normally for writing.
Yeah, you want to see how khichdi is made? Absolutely.
No. Trust me, trust yourself. You will make a better drawing with pen than you do with pencil, for sure. A lot of students have come back to me with that comment. And the same illustration, when made in pencil, it's bombed really bad, and I cannot explain it. Now, when we are drawing the coriander over here, don't bother drawing all the leaves. It's a nightmare. Painting coriander that's like one of those challenges you should bet on, and let the opponent try and draw the coriander. So just draw a few wispy shapes to indicate the area in which the coriander has been placed. That's it. Just like these. Now these lines also, please don't make them like a zigzag line because that looks unnatural as well. It's just like leaf shapes, a few leaf shapes, then some gaps, then some straight lines and gaps. It has to look reasonably amorphous. When you're making the tomatoes, because there's a stalk on them, draw the sides of the tomatoes first. And then draw part of the stalk. If you feel the stalk is too complicated, don't even bother drawing it. Just draw the tomatoes with this 5-pronged, the sepals on it, and that's good enough. If you find that complicated, just draw a shape like that. Now my box ends at this point, but I've drawn only 5 instead of the 7 tomatoes. So I'm going to just draw one more on top over here. And not bother with making the others. I could make one underneath here, otherwise the backdrop will look very dark. Now, as you can see, the space between my potato and the avocado is a little more than I had anticipated. So I'm going to add one more potato in this space. And possibly another one over here. So there's a whole bunch of extra potatoes. And then I'll draw the avocado. But draw the sprigs of asparagus in these dashed lines. Asparagus spears are actually very pretty to sketch because they've got these very characteristic stalks. So just leave some gaps. And even the heads that you make, you can just make them very scraggly. Wherever you find yourself in doubt, you don't know how to make a shape, make blank lines. Nobody's asking me what is a blank line. Okay, so blank line is when you leave some spaces unfinished in your line because you can't discern what is happening over there. And wherever you can see something, you just continue there. Okay, and then I'm going to continue the shape of my avocado. And here there's a very nice red bell pepper, which I'm going to finish up. This is all the drawing that I'm going to do. And around this, I'm going to create the box. Now, those of you who are not confident of your straight lines, whatever happens in this situation, do not use a scale. Because when our lines are so wispy and unsure, if we land up using a scale, which is a very, very sharp straight line and very defined, it will really interfere with all this, the magical lines that we have. Now, a few points over here for illustration is when for the carrots, you can make just a few lines like that, horizontal-ish lines, but they're slightly curved to imitate the texture on carrot. You can make a few lines like this on the onions, which are the texture of the onion. A few dots on the potatoes in a few areas, not polka dot the onions all over. A few dots for texture for the avocado. So when all this is underneath the painting, it looks very interesting. And now the garlic is looking straight at us over here, right? So it's got a few strands of the bottom of the garlic, which you can indicate with just these lines. That's good enough. There is some garlic underneath here as well. Okay, for this now, I just want to know if everyone is drawing this or you've been observing it, because I'm going to be painting this very fast. And I want you to paint with me.
Mama, I'm just drawing, just like another minute or so.
Another minute? Okay. How about everyone else? Nikita and Shrishti, I've not heard from you. Are you still there?
I'm also drawing. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
Okay, fine. Just checking if I have not scared you off too much. So the reason why I insist on a time limit and trying to make it really fast is because with watercolor, I've found if you give yourself too much time, it starts becoming a mess. And because I've gone through the same process, and I spoke with a good friend of mine. He's an amazing watercolor artist, and I asked him, why is it that this happens? And the advice he gave me was to not play with, don't play with the painting too much. So while when we're pencil sketching, we go back and forth and keep adding more and more information to the picture and trying to make it more finessed. If we try and do that in watercolor, it's a nightmare for the medium. So whatever we have to say, it has to be brief and succinct and very direct. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of erasing here because I have a straight line. Oh, very nice, Rana, good. I have a straight line running through my coriander, and that just will not do. But everywhere else, that straight line is not going to bother. Now for the coriander, to add more depth, I'm creating these shapes which are imitating some leaves that are sticking out, some bunches here or there. And that's good enough. Now, when we paint this, we start with the lightest shades first and then go layer upon layer, adding more and more shades, more and more colors and depth. Now, because this painting is so tiny, you can use a 4-number brush or a 6-number brush. So let's start with painting the garlic first, because that's the lightest. And all you do is use this same kind of brown shade that we used as the base of the pears. And you will literally just create a shadow along the edge of the garlic. That's it. That's about it. Maybe a few strokes here.
Miss, are we using the green color or the gray color?
The gray color.
Oh, okay.
And just with a few strokes, you plant this color. That's it.
I'll just observe now and then paint later
Okay.
because I fell back in my drawing.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. No problem. All right. Now, for the potato, the colors, again, I'm hoping that you try mixing colors yourself. I'm using a yellow ochre with a little bit of gamboge. And when I'm applying it, I'll apply it with a slight flat brush like this.
Gamboge and yellow ochre, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I think a little bit of burnt umber,
Burnt umber,
yeah, will work like this. So much of this is just applying paint and quickly mixing it with the next shade like this. And you will get the shade, so you shouldn't, it's going to be a little unnecessary piece, but it's fine. But keep a rag handy. I can't stress enough, because whatever happens, that the amount of paint in your brush at the end of the day is more important, is as important as the shade of color that you make. Eventually, the shade you will start getting by just practicing. You'll just make more and more potatoes and you'll say, okay, this color is better than that, and that's about it. Then we can move to the bell pepper over here, the yellow bell pepper, and that's painted in just a gamboge. I think it's going to be fine. Now, here's one thing that happens when we are painting is in certain, when we move the brush across the paper and we lift the brush, that point is where you'll notice most of the color just settles, and that can be an advantage. So you move the color towards where you want a denser shade of the same color, and it'll just stay there.
Miss, this happens with me every time. When I don't need it, the color just plops down there. When I need it, it doesn't come.
So then, did you try something different? Did you change your strategy?
No, I just like draw a circle, like hold the brush for longer where more paint is needed, and then just lift it up quickly when it's not needed.
No, so there's always some place where you need extra paint. Now you should just bring that down to or take it up to that area. All right, now oranges. I'm going to start off with a mix of gamboge and orange. And now I'll just show you how we can do this very efficiently. Paint all the carrots in that color. And then we'll come back and just paint a darker shade towards the bottom of each carrot. So can you see the colors are not uniform? They're blended. There are different shades in this. And that's pretty good for all fruits and vegetables, that the shades don't need to be all the same. Okay. Now onions. Onions can be rather painful. So if I may, the colors that I'll use for onions will be burnt sienna. And maybe I'll do this for you. Burnt sienna. And a mix of crimson and ultramarine blue to get the right purple shade. So much of the painting of the onions will be just burnt sienna, but then the ones on top, they are quite bright. For that, we will make a mix of ultramarine blue and crimson. So the same way, make the highlight and then add the deeper color like we did for the apple while it's still wet. So the trick here again is to use very little paint, not too much, so that you can do this in quick succession, one after the other. This onion is also just plain burnt sienna. And then towards the side, I could add a little bit of burnt umber or make it redder. So leaving a few lines unpainted also helps. Okay, now we're at 6:30 and there is a lot to do. So is it possible to continue this next week for maybe 20 minutes or half an hour before class? Can we start at 4:30 next week? Any chance? Or can we go on till 7 right now? What's the consensus?
4:30.
Ma'am, we can continue.
Ma'am, we can continue next class.
Okay, can I just have a vote of how many would like to continue right now?
I don't mind continuing now.
Okay, so
I'm
that's
mind
1,
continuing now.
2, and okay, so that's 2 votes, huh? Okay. Can you just give
And
a
me and
hand?
Bhakti also for continuing.
Okay, so you and Bhakti are continuing. Who else is continuing? Neha, okay.
I can
And
actually do next time also, so I'm okay with anything.
okay, Nikita can also continue. Okay, only Karan wants next week. Shrishti, how are you? Purvi?
Next week.
Purvi is next week. Shrishti?
I guess now.
Now, okay. So I think that's a majority. Let's just go with right now. And then, of course, I'll be sharing this. So those who need to leave can leave, and then you can just watch the video later on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So before I go, can you just see my drawing?
Yes, yes, I can see yours, correct. Nice. Very good. Did you do this in pencil first and then in pen?
I made the box and some part in pencil,
Okay.
and then I did everything in pen.
Okay. Okay, that's also good enough. Next time, just try making everything in pen other than the box. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's continue. I'm moving on to the redder onions. This time I'm using the mixture of crimson and ultramarine blue. And there's a lot of water in this right now, which I will change as I come towards the left so I get a deeper shade. And when painting, I will paint it in this shape. So I will start getting a texture through even the first layer of painting.
Aditi,
Yeah.
the browner onions were painted with what colors?
This was burnt sienna.
Mhm.
And this is with
Crimson and ultramarine blue.
and ultramarine blue, yeah.
Okay, that was just burnt sienna.
Yes, yeah. And even for these, if you look at them closely, you can see a few strands of burnt sienna in these also.
Yep.
So you can
Play around a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
So more than anything else, it actually comes down to what you see and how you break this down into the colors that we have in our palette.
Aditi, while you're painting, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So in the apple, there are those speckles, right? Those white speckles.
Yeah.
If at all I really want to get that,
Okay.
then what do I do? Or it's just not worth doing it?
No. There are ways. So one is you can use masking fluid and make those specks beforehand. And then paint the watercolor on that. Or you can use a gouache white.
A gouache white. Yeah.
Or a white pen.
Yeah.
But at this scale, those specks would be invisible. So it all depends on how large your picture is. And then at that point, how you should make it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. I think there are more carrots underneath here. There's such a big gaping hole, which I don't want to make. So I'm going to make more carrots underneath here. And I suppose even more onions over here so that I don't have too many dark patches, because we're going to make the backdrop really dark. Now, the trick that I use for these images in the backdrop, they are going to have certain shadows, is you can first illustrate them, paint them exactly like how we painted their compatriots in the foreground with that same light color. And then we'll go back into it with a dark shadowy color and make shadows on them afterwards. So give the same amount of attention to the elements in the backdrop. You can use the same colors. And then we'll do the shadows later on together. Don't make them darker at this stage right now. For the tomatoes, I'm just going in with a scarlet. And Rayana, you're here now. Now look at this. If you use it the right consistency, when you pull down the paint to one area and you lift the brush, that area, it can remain dark. See, over here, it's slightly deeper. Too much water. Too much paint. If there's too much paint, reduce the paint from your brush by wiping on your rag. What happened?
Aditi, this is just scarlet?
This is just scarlet, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, here you will probably be able to see this. I'm actively moving the brush towards the left because I want more color on the left-hand side. Even these subtle color changes look very distinct. So I hope you notice how fast your brush can move on paper and still just create an illusion of some fruit or vegetable, right? We don't have to make so many details. So one thing to remember constantly is that where certain details that you want in your illustration, either you can't make or you don't make, there is a certain ability in the brain to just fill in the information it wants to. So you give it 50-60% of the information, and or sometimes even less, especially in cases of faces. I could put two objects over here and an object over here, and you'll see it as a face. It's just how the brain works. So if we manage to get the color right, then and the shape right, and in certain cases, wherever pertinent, the proportion right, usually the brain figures out what we're trying to say there. And that's all that we need to really think about. Okay, now for this bell pepper, as it's coming down, I'm going to deepen the color using burnt umber again. Added to that, this was also just scarlet, and make it a deep dark color towards the right. In fact, I might make, like the apple, I might make a ridge over here as well. Because it doesn't look like a bell pepper otherwise, at least in my picture.
Miss Mai has turned out to be, I don't know, beetroot.
Beetroot, okay, beetroot is fine as long as it's not a cat. It's still a vegetable. So.
Rana is so cute. She's like, oh my God, mine turned out to be a beetroot.
I know, and with the color change, when she shows it to us, God knows what it's going to look on screen. Another worry.
I missed you, Rana.
So when you're moving your brush on the paper, no, just look for it um to literally just dance around.
Ma'am, there are tinges of red in this capsicum, so should we just ignore that or do we have to put it?
You can ignore it.
Okay.
I'm trying to put it, but I have first put a yellow and now I've added the red tinge on the wet yellow. But you can ignore it completely. Now imagine trying to draw this in a large scale. If we made the picture really big, then there would be need for more information to make all these details. So in the beginning, try to draw images that are no bigger than your palm, firstly, and something like that, just about 2-3 inches is good, because then you use a small brush, very little paint, and worst case scenario, you've not made a big mess, you've just made a small mess. That's that's good enough.
Aditi, would it be right to say that if we were to obviously make bigger pieces or bigger images of this, say for example, we use this entire paper for this, obviously the quality of the paper has to be better because it has to be wet for a longer time. The paints for them to kind of flow into each other and whatever blending and stuff that we tend to do.
Yeah, certainly. We
So
could
this
do.
paper won't work for sure.
This paper is very good for quick illustrations.
Correct.
And for practicing color blending and a few things.
Yeah.
Once, if you can do anything on this paper, the other paper is like, you can, it's, how do I say? I can't give a suitable example, but what is it that you can, if you can do with a lot of obstacles, then when all the obstacles are removed, you can do it much better, much faster. So think of it like that. The obstacle with this paper is that you have to be very precise with the paint.
Yeah.
In the 300 GSM paper, if you don't like a particular color, you can actually dab it off and it does nothing to the paper. So those things, but sometimes if you do that in the beginning, it's a little frustrating because that too requires a certain amount of skill. You may remove the paint, but you don't know what should go in its place and at what point and how the paper is reacting. And there are more variables in when you're using thicker paper. Just 1 second, just hang on. Sorry. Okay, now for the dark, the coriander. We'll just use a light wash of sap green and just make these random brush strokes. So some parts of your coriander will remain unpainted. And we'll come back to this and keep filling this with additional layers. That's all we need to do for coriander. So between different herbs, the shape of the silhouette of the herb and the very distinctive color of that herb will make it look different. So your coriander, your what are those, cilantro and all of that will look pretty much the same. When we have to make something like rosemary, it'll be more spiky. If you want to make methi, it's going to be more rounder. So the silhouette of the green vegetables is very distinct.
And that in the illustration format, we can achieve by the sketch, right?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
And the painting will remain more or less similar. The style of painting will remain more or less similar.
Yes. 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 It's just washes.
Yeah.
Now for the avocado, the colors I'm mixing are sap green, viridian green, and burnt umber. So I'm getting a brownish green shade because I don't want to make it so deep. And again, this I will paint in such a way that I leave a bit of a highlight. But in the highlight, I will make a texture like this with the brush. And I can make the same texture in a dark color afterwards. So it's not a round, smooth highlight.
Can you tell what colors did you use for the avocado?
Yes. Sap green, viridian green, and burnt umber.
Okay. Thanks.
I've made one more over here. So paint that as well. And we can drop a little bit of burnt umber along one side to create that depth. I still haven't painted this stalk. All right. Now we can keep coming back to these. Like I can use the avocado color for a few shadows in the green bell pepper like that. Maybe a little bit around the stalk, a little around the edges. So even if we make a color for one particular vegetable, they can be moved around. If the shade works, it works. You just need to make the strokes very lightly. Now, to make all of this stand out, we will make a box color, which will be burnt umber and not burnt umber, yellow ochre and burnt sienna. And you can just paint the box in this shade. So from the sides, the entire box that we see can be painted, but it will look reasonably flat. So we are going to make it a little dark. Yeah, and for the orange, for the carrots, this is what I was going to do. Take a dark orange and gamboge color and just spread it along the bottom edge. And maybe over here. So you get dimension there. So all the edges from the outside, wherever you can see the bottom of the box, you can take the box color down. But in the spaces in between, we are going to make a deep shadow color, which will be burnt umber, black, and ultramarine blue. Now, whenever I make dark shades, I avoid making them in a flat black color because that can literally just look very flat. And using a nice thin brush this time, you can start painting the spaces in between all the vegetables.
Sorry, I want to draw your attention in my background. Just look at the color of the sky.
Yeah, I just saw it.
Isn't it like
Pastel.
really
Yeah,
pretty?
it's like it's been painted. Very beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Winter skies, yeah, always so unpredictable and beautiful.
Aditi, sorry, what was the background color mixture again? You said the
Yes.
combination.
Yeah, it's burnt umber,
Okay.
ultramarine blue, and black.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I'll paint that in the large area, and then closer to the objects, I will add a deeper shade of the same color. So I get a duotone shadow. So can you see the difference when I use the color with a little water? I get like this gray shade, and then I'll take extra pigment and then just run it along some of the vegetables and I'll get a deeper shadow. So these two help in making the background look less flat when you use it in this combination. As far as possible, avoid using a single shade for anything. Even if it seems to have just one color, you can use 2 layers of the same color. So this way now all the fruit will stand out very distinctly. I'll make these stalks also while we're at it. And now I'll take the same shadow color and, oh, nice, Anna, very good. So I'll run it along the edges of the box as well, so that I get more depth in my picture. That's one thing. And when you're doing this, keep the tip of your brush towards the fruit or vegetable in the box and the flat edge towards the outside, because you want the darkness to be, oh my God, to be around the fruit and vegetable rather than the end of the box. And here again, you can do a second layer while the paint is slightly damp. So layer upon layer, you can keep making that the color deeper and deeper. And the same color now can also be used for these vegetables underneath. Remember, I told you, just a light hand and you can create those same shadow effects. So this is how you can create the kind of contrast that you need in any good looking picture. If there is an adequate contrast in a picture and even in a color picture, it tends to look rather flat. The eye doesn't move from one side of the painting to another in any form because there is nothing that is attracting attention. Now, a graphic like this or a motif or just a small composition like that can be used very nicely for maybe an article on food in or travel article on marketplaces or something like that. So what kind of composition you need for what kind of application is also something that you need to think about. So like, for example, if you are speaking about a particular food, obviously you're going to make that. But say you want to talk about some place where you've traveled and you just walk through a marketplace or something, it might be too daunting to draw a whole vegetable vendor in the beginning, and might take a lot of time as well. But something like this can be drawn with a lot more ease. Okay, here again, I'm going to use that shadow color, very light shadow on the carrots. Yep, I think
Now I'm wondering how we're to fix this.
how you're going to fix what? Your beetroot?
No, it's on that sunlight. I can't even understand now because it's not coming much to the eye. The sap green I've mixed and all this has happened, and now the sap green has turned to brown.
Has turned to brown. Okay. What were you trying to make?
No, it was just that I mixed the color too close to it, and now I can't get the sap green without touching the brown, and then it's becoming black.
Oh, okay. Too much. Very big party of colors you've thrown in that little bit of space.
And the thing is, I can't even wash it off because I really love my colors, no matter how ugly they are. I just can't wipe them off the palette.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but there will be a day, some days you have to just clean your palette.
I mean, my palette is literally there's not a single empty bar.
Okay, how's it looking? Nice. Very good, Dipti. So a little bit of dark background, I think you can increase. That way all the fruit, vegetable, even more. You can make it even more. So then all the vegetables will look even brighter.
Problem is I can't see the colors right now, so I was scared to use dark color.
Yeah, the dark you can use.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Worst case scenario, it might be a little too black. That is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the lighter colors and the subtle colors that can be a little difficult. Yeah, Rayana is good, I saw. Shrishti, very nice. Awesome. Yeah, you guys are cool. Purvi, very good. Something went wrong with the asparagus green, I think.
Yeah, I think my color, my water had gone bad actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll just look
it's fine.
brown asparagus.
Yeah, otherwise it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I
Okay.
like the proportion. Most of the colors are on point. Very nice.
Okay,
Very
thank
good.
you.
Looking good. Great, you all did it. I thought nobody is going to be able to do it, and you're going to complain and not land up next week. Okay, great. So this was a little more than I had anticipated, but good. I just skipped over those oranges, but you can paint those oranges just like this. So remember, we are trying to make the illustration look fun. The colors should dance on the paper. No, we are not looking at absolute perfections. Even with imperfections, the painting looks quite good. Very nice, Karan. You managed to do it. Good job. Okay, and next week we'll be doing recipe illustration. So please send me some interesting recipes that you know of. They could even be on Pinterest or something. Just send me the link so I can go through it. And then we can use one of those and create one recipe. All of us will just make that one recipe. If you have something of your own, send me that recipe also, because we'll be doing illustration and a little bit of basic lettering next week. The next month, the whole month is lettering, but in order to do that properly, we should know where we need help. Yeah, so this recipe illustration, and then the week after that, journaling, will be a little bit of lettering where you will then try and figure out what we need to focus on. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Sorry for delaying this, but this was fun. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, miss.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.